So now I am so excited to kick off today's event, Together We Rise, Empowering Women in the Workplace, sponsored by my good friends over at Renaissance Learning. Now, for those who don't know, Fairygodboss is the largest career community for women. Millions of women visit Fairygodboss for career connections, jobs, community advice, hard to find intel about how other companies treat women, and virtual events just like this one here. So I am thrilled. I'm so thrilled. You guys have heard enough about me, but I'm thrilled to be joined by three leaders at Renaissance Learning: Chastity, Anna, and Liz. So I would absolutely love if each of you would take a minute to introduce yourselves. We'd love to hear what's going on in your personal lives, professional lives, and what you do in your role today at Renaissance Learning. So I'd say, Chastity, let's start with you.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Chastity McFarland. I'm the Director of Content Quality and DEI at Renaissance. In this role, I work with content teams across Renaissance products to help ensure our student-facing material is appropriate, it's inclusive, and it's representative of the students that we serve. And in my personal life, I am planning a wedding in February.
Oh my God. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. That's amazing. Anna, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. My name is Anna Edie, and I am the Director of Customer Deployment at Renaissance, which means my team onboards customers with the solutions that they've purchased. So we work with school districts across the country to get them set up. I live outside of Minneapolis, so I saw someone from Minneapolis in the chat. And in my personal life, I have two little boys, and today is the official start of summer break. So we are juggling all of the camps and piecing together childcare for the summer while we lose the routine that we've had for 9 months.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Anna. And then last but certainly not least, Liz, please introduce yourself and your role over at Renaissance.
My name is Liz Perry, and I'm the Recruitment Marketing Manager here at Renaissance. So what that means is I work with our talent acquisition team and through others throughout the business to really bring our employee stories to life and showcase what it's like to work here at Renaissance for our potential and prospective candidates. And then in my personal life, I'm considering adopting another kitten. So Anna says yes. Okay. My cat is kind of crazy, and so I'm hoping that if we were to potentially adopt another one, that she might calm down a bit.
So, hey, please keep us updated on how that works out. Definitely. So thank you all so much, and I'm just so excited about our discussion today. Now, for those who are just tuning in, I would like to remind everyone that we will be answering questions that come directly from you all. So please submit your questions on the chat on the right of your screen. We'll do our best to answer as many of those as we can. So now some questions that I have. Let's see here now. As you grow your career, how do you ensure that you are lifting other women up with you? Like, what do you do in your day-to-day work life and beyond to serve as an ally? What is your best advice for other people who want to be better allies? And I'd say we can start with Anna.
Awesome. Great question. So when I think about what I have done and what I hope to continue to do in the workplace and in my career, I grounded in a lot of creating relationships with my colleagues and connecting as human first. Often we get into this professional, we have job responsibilities and we're working together on certain tasks. And especially in a remote setting, we forget that we are people first. And I love, Lasheen, in introducing ourselves. You asked specifically about what's happening in our personal life, because I think we forget to do that sometime. And we get on these scheduled 30-minute Zoom calls and it's right to business. And so I have multiple, instances in my career where I have created longstanding relationships with other women in my professional setting that have allowed me to advocate for myself, that have supported me and allowed me to also support them in turn. So it starts with the relationship at the core first and prioritizing that time.
I absolutely agree with that. I love it. Yeah, I'd love to hear the other panelists chime in on this one. Chastity, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so two things come to mind in terms of lifting up other women. The first is that I understand the impact of mentioning someone's name when they're not in the room. So if it's recommending them for an opportunity, suggesting them as a knowledgeable resource, or just simply complimenting them to their boss, whenever I get a chance, I try to shine a light on someone else. And the second thing that comes to mind is an article that I read recently that says there are 4 types of people that you want in your corner to help you succeed. And that's a coach, a mentor, although I would say a mentor / sponsor, a cheerleader, and a friend. And so often we place most of the emphasis on coaching and mentorship. But I think when it comes to what we can do for others, we may downplay the importance of being a friend and a cheerleader. And sometimes just showing up for someone consistently and cheering them on as they overcome obstacles, that can make all the difference in the perseverance and in their confidence. So where I see an opportunity to play any of those roles, I try to lean into that.
I love that so much, the 4 different types. That is incredible. Thank you so much. And Liz, please chime in on this one.
I think Anna had said, or no, it was Chastity, how you mention people when they're not around. And I think that's a huge one. I think it's important to give compliments, not necessarily compliments. Compliments, I guess, but that are based on how the person is actually interacting with you, or maybe they had a really great interaction with a customer or another colleague, or you can see them supporting somebody else. And I think it's important to call attention to that. And so I like to give praise freely and not really hold it back. If somebody's doing something well, I'm going to say something. I think also in the past, there have been times where people have potentially like taken credit for something that I've done or that others have done. And so if I am with someone and we're talking about something that's been done, I'm going to say, well, this person worked on it and I can't take credit for that, but I contributed in XYZ way, because I think that's really important to bring visibility to others who are also helping.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for those insightful answers, all 3 of you. To keep the ball rolling here, I was curious, how are you each involved in employee resource groups over at Renaissance Learning? Like, how would you encourage someone to start, organize, and manage an ERG? Like, what kinds of ERGs does Renaissance Learning have? Liz, I'm sure you can kick us off with this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a bunch of employee resource groups, or ERGs, here at Renaissance. And for those who may not know, an ERG is a voluntary employee-led group that's based on a common interest or background. And really the aim is to help foster a diverse, inclusive workplace. So at Renaissance, we have a bunch, and I'm a member of several of them. So we have growing and including neurodiversity. I'm in that ERG. I have ADHD. I love learning from other people how they are, building strategies to help you throughout your life. There is the Alliance for Mental Wellness. We have a new one that's Women of Renaissance. We have the Rainbow Alliance, which is for LGBTQ plus employees. Happy Pride. Aspire is a new one that is Asians and Pacific Islanders of Renaissance. And then I'll actually pass to Anna and Chastity to talk about our 2 remaining ERGs that I didn't mention.
Absolutely. That is so exciting. I love what I'm hearing about the Alliance for Mental Wellness, especially, was one that really kind of, I loved hearing that you guys have that kind of a program. Back in the day, I love how these ERG groups are now like expanding, and there's so many different types. Back in the day, what was it? Just like the guys who did the fantasy football league. Like, there was no real ERGs, but now we actually have like different divisions of people. I love it. I just love it. Anna, I'd love for you to talk about a couple of the other ones that you're a part of.
Yeah, so I am the founder of the Working Moms of Renaissance ERG, and I was actually just looking at the calendar, and it was about 2 years ago, almost to the week, that I came back from maternity leave with my second son. His name is Dax. He was born in February of 2020. 21. And I came back and I was so overwhelmed, even though it was my second child coming back after being, postpartum away and trying to catch up. I think I had like thousands of emails in my inbox. And at that time, Renaissance had just launched their employee resource group program. And for whatever reason, that was the email that caught my eye to open first on my day back. And it was inviting people to found and kind of share ideas and shared resources of how to get started. And I will never forget messaging one of my dearest colleagues. And I said, Rachel, like, I want to do this. And she's like, you just got back. You have a 4-month-old. And I'm like, no. We need for working moms. And I channeled all of the feelings and emotions. And I knew I wasn't alone because I had connected with colleagues. And so we are now proud to say we are global across our company, and we have over 175 working moms that are part of our employee resource group. And we network, and the whole goal is to create that community within Renaissance to support women that are balancing personally being the best mom that they can be, and also being career women, and doing both proudly. So we'll talk a little bit more later on kind of the structure of it and where I find my passion. But I'm very proud that Renaissance has created this space for us working parents to balance all of the things.
That is amazing and phenomenal, Anna. And kudos to you for spearheading such an initiative and seeing how it's taken off like that. That is inspiring to our entire audience, I'm sure. Excuse me, Chastity, I would love to hear your take on ERGs and any that are going on that you're a part of.
Yeah, so a few months after joining the company, I co-launched the Renaissance Black Employee Network. It's Renaissance's ERG for employees who identify as Black. And I was the co-chair for about 2 years, and I've stepped down, but I'm still really active. My advice, so you asked about advice for starting and organizing ERGs, and I would say, and this is really a strength of our ERG, is that we listen to our members. Whoever it is that you are trying to serve, make sure you listen to your members. Before we even submitted the application for the ERG, we hosted a listening session for the Black employees at Renaissance. And we heard their concerns, their needs, what they were looking for in an ERG. And we structured our mission and vision and the entire charter based on that conversation. So making sure everyone's voice is heard. I think it's really important, not just for buy-in and for engagement, but also for fostering the sense of inclusion and belonging that you're aiming for with an ERG.
I 100% agree with you, Chastity. You actually kind of just resonated with me. I did a panel over the weekend about allyship, and they asked, like, what's the best way to be an ally? And I was like, listen. Like, that's, like, it's so simple, but I'm so happy you said that too. Just listen. Amazing. So to keep it going, and I do see the audience questions coming in, guys. Keep them coming. We are going to get to Q&A section in just a little bit, okay? So I have a two-parter for you guys. And Anna, I want you to kick this one off, okay? Part one, what can employee resource groups do to integrate diversity and inclusion initiatives within a company? And part two, what are some tangible actions that our audience can take to support and champion women's empowerment in their workplaces and communities?
Awesome. So kind of piggybacking on what Chastity was saying about the importance of listening. One of the things that the Working Moms of Renaissance does frequently is we survey our members to better understand what they're hoping to get and improvements we can make to be more inclusive at Renaissance. And so we have a policy and culture committee that's part of the ERG. And one of the things that we've done this is answering part two at the same time a little bit, that's very tangible, is we partnered with our partners in human resources, and it took a couple of months, but we brought forward a recommendation to change our bereavement policy at Renaissance to be inclusive of parents that were experiencing miscarriages or stillbirths, which is not a common thing that's part of parental leave and loss of a child. And so that's something we're really proud of, to make this space, our workspace, more inclusive of people that are going through, hard times. And so to the second part of what are things that we can do, review your company policies. And I know that might seem a little bit dry, but but sometimes it's worth reviewing and saying, like, what could we do to tweak this policy to be more inclusive of others or everyone at Renaissance, and set up time with HR. I'm fortunate that our HR partners are incredible to work with, and they love hearing our ideas. And so we sat down with them, and we have regular meetings with them to make sure our policies are representing what we hope to be in the culture that we are hoping to create at Renaissance.
I have to say that is just phenomenal, and you guys are thinking, outside of the box and addressing so many different issues and scenarios that I honestly wouldn't have even thought of. That's just incredible, and I hope that the audience is getting a huge takeaway from this, and hopefully can pitch that to their companies too. Phenomenal, Anna. Oh my gosh. Chastity, I would love for you to jump in on this one.
Yeah. So one thing that really sticks out in my mind when I think about supporting and championing women's empowerment is to not forget about intersectionality. I am a woman, yes, but I am a woman with a race, an age, education status, income level, ability status, sexual orientation, the list just goes on, that may or may not be different from other women on my team. And the same way that my gender identity impacts how I see the world and how the world sees me, so do all of the other identities that I listed. And just as an example, we are not telling the full story if we talk about the gender wage gap, but don't bring up race. We can't talk about protecting women's rights and leave trans women out of the conversation. So we have to think about all of the identities that we bring. So my push for everyone, something that I think everyone can do, but especially leaders of ERGs, is that while you're building your community based on this shared identity, continue to honor the other individual differences that everyone brings to the table. For example, and I have to give my fiance credit for this because I got the idea from him, but I think it's so powerful to see collaboration between ERGs. Liz mentioned that it's Pride Month. In 2 weeks, we're celebrating Juneteenth. What a perfect time to celebrate Black women in the LGBTQ community. And I think that's how we can continue showing up for everyone, and how we can continue to empower women is by honoring everyone's identities.
Amazing, just amazing. I have to ask the crowd, like, is everyone else getting goosebumps, or is it just me? This is so inspirational. You guys are just turning up, and really reminds me of why I love being a part of Fairygodboss and this kind of community, because we're having these conversations that honestly 20 years ago you wouldn't have been able to have. It's just amazing. Let's see here. So I have a question for you, Liz. What are some effective networking strategies that you've used for establishing relationships at work and expanding your network?
Yeah, I work in a remote environment, so we're predominantly remote at Renaissance. So I can speak to remote, and I can speak to in the office, and how kind of they differ. So remotely, when you're in meetings with other people, just kind of take notice. What are they talking about? Maybe they have some kind of shirt on that has maybe like a band or something that you like, or something in their decor in the back of them as you are looking at them. Maybe there's something that might strike your interest. Use that as a way to talk to them. And really, once you have had a conversation, or even just so for example, in a recent HR all hands meeting, I noticed that somebody on another team had painted her wall this fantastic color, and it reminded me of my living room downstairs. So I had messaged her. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love the color that's on your wall." Turns out we have it's like a teal color. So it's not a normal color. We painted our walls the exact same color.
Oh wow.
So this person, I hadn't really worked with her before, but then we have, this commonality. So I would say, utilize little things like that remotely. Just start to kind of build a community and start talking to people. If you're in an office, this is a lot maybe easier to do in person, because you are running into people by the water cooler. You're, seeing people in the hallways or while they're waiting outside of a meeting room. So you can have some of those spur of the moment interactions. When you're remote, you have to make them yourself. So I would say just, try to reach out to other people, start building a friendship.
Mm-hmm. I love that too. And especially the points that you're making that, when you're remote, you do have to take that extra step that you wouldn't have to, because at work, in the office, the opportunities present themselves and then you just seize it. But you have to take that extra step being remote. And I think people will appreciate that more, because we all know that, like, for you to take your time to set the initiative to ask someone about their day or to talk to someone and build that friendship, that takes an extra step that I think everyone will appreciate. So I think it'll get you further too. Anna, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts, and I think networking, especially with platforms such as LinkedIn, it's changed in the last 10 years, and I think often we associate networking with having to find a new job or when you're on the job hunt, and I think that we need to remind ourselves that, like, networking, especially outside of your company, it can happen all the time, regardless of if you're looking for a job or not. And as women, sometimes I don't think we are as bold as we should be. And the worst thing someone can say to you is like, no, or just not respond. And so I've been challenging myself lately as, if I'm seeing someone post something really cool on LinkedIn, sending them that message. I personally am not on the job hunt. I also find value in learning from others. Send them that message and say, hey, this was really interesting. I would love to connect for 20 minutes on a Teams meeting and just learn a little bit more about you or your background. I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and I was inspired by a company's chief officer. I think their people officer was her title. And I sent her a note on LinkedIn, and I just said, I would love to share a little bit about, the ERG that I have founded, and also understand how you support women in your company, and maybe we have some best practices we can share. And she wrote back. I didn't expect her to write back, but she did. And if I hadn't sent her a message, we would never have made that connection. And that doesn't mean that we're going to talk every day. But certainly it's now a new person that I know, is inclusive of women and women allyship in the workplace. And I feel comfortable going to her now and bouncing ideas off of her. And I hope she sees me as the same. So send the message, just send the message, whether it's an internal message or an external message. And then don't feel bad if they don't reply. We're all busy. Lives are busy.
Yep. Anna, that was amazing. I love it. It looks like the audience is really getting a kick out of that too. They love that the person responded back. Guys, you got to shoot your shot. At the end of the day, you got to shoot your shot. So I love it. So you know what we're going to do is take a quick little segment of answering some audience questions. And in the vein of we were already speaking about ERGs, I want to stick to that one first. So one audience member asked, I would love to learn how to create an ERG group for women that is inclusive of all and any woman, regardless of all other factors, i.e. being a mother, being LGBTQ, etc. So I'm thinking that they want to know, how would you go about just, creating it in the first place, getting a buzz and, making it happen? Anyone who wants to answer, we do this Jeopardy style. Whoever buzzes first, Family Feud style, I'm sorry. Whoever buzzes first gets it. So just go ahead and unmute whoever wants to go first.
I'll go. I would say the first step is start jotting ideas on a Post-it note. If you had a magic wand and you could create the ERG to look a certain way, what would that look like? So that would be my first advice. The second would be like find a friend or colleague, hopefully the same, someone that, to Chastity's point, of that friend that is in it with you. It is so fun to build these with another person. So get with another colleague that is just as excited and passionate as you are, and then just start mapping it out. And, Renaissance, they didn't put a ton of parameters in place. It truly was employee led. And when we started getting our ideas on paper, we then met with, some folks in HR and said, this is what we want to do. And they're like, great, do it. So be, dreamers in what you want this to look like. And then the structure will follow, but kind of lead with, what do you hope that people get from the ERG, and find someone to do it with to make it really fun.
I love that. I love that. So teamwork, it'll make the dream work, folks. Let's see another audience question here. Okay, got it. Is there any advice for women who are looking to make a career change? Like using transferable skills to change jobs, or women looking into leaving their current field to one with more growth opportunities. Excuse me, Chastity.
Yes, shouting out my fiance again, because he is the reason that I went into tech. I don't have an educational background in technology. My PhD is in psychology, and I did research in education. So I didn't see a role for me in the tech space, but apparently, and now I see that it is true, there is a place for everyone in the field of technology. So I have my PMP, my project management certification, and there's a role for you there. If you are interested in research, there's like this whole field of UX research. Right now, I work with the content teams. So I'm on the product team, but I work closely with those making the student-facing material. So if you can figure out what it is that you are passionate about and the skills that you bring to the table, there is a place for you in tech.
I love that so much. Anybody else want to chime in? Liz, go for it.
I would say for those who are looking to make a career change using transferable skills, just put yourself out there. There's the, I can't quote it exactly, but women and underrepresented individuals have a tendency to not apply to jobs unless they meet 100% of the qualifications listed on there. And sorry, what'd you say, Lasheen?
Confidence gap is what that's called.
Yes, confidence gap. And just put yourself out there. You don't have to hit 100% of those. Just if you want to try, just try, because eventually you'll succeed. And at least you're putting yourself out there, you're getting your name out there, you're potentially getting feedback on what else you may need to do to be seen.
Exactly. Shoot your shot, guys. That might be the hashtag. I don't know. Anna, did you want to chime in?
I would just say always take the interview as well. And you have to apply. But even if you apply and you're like, you know what, I'm not exactly sure this is what I want to do. Or maybe, the confidence gaps creeps in and you start doubting yourself of, oh gosh, now I have to talk to the skills. I find more often these days, I'm hearing interviews are much more conversational, right? It's less this like, I'm going to formally ask you a question and back and forth. And so even at the end of the interview, it's not the right fit, or you decide, or they decide, yep, we're not going to move forward. The interview process is an opportunity for you to see those natural connections, and talking through it with someone, you might not think how they described the skill and the application that you have that. But once they ask the question of like, tell me about a time you did this, you're going to realize you have that skill. It's just called something different in your brain, right? And so talking through it and having that opportunity, don't ever shy away from taking an interview, because they will get feedback, you will receive it, and you're going to grow for the time that you find a job that you're really excited about.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that so much. Great stuff, guys. So there are more audience questions, but I'm going to let the queue fill back up. In the meantime, I have a couple questions as well. And Anna, since we're already talking, I want to keep it on you for a second. Now, what are some practical strategies for addressing work-life balance and self-care?
So I'm laughing at myself with this one, because my practical strategy is take time to get your hair cut. And you're all thinking like, what does that mean? And after I had my two little ones, I struggled to find time in my life to go and get my hair cut. And getting my hair cut is something that I really like. It feels good, and it's a break for me, and it's me time. And my husband, who I love dearly, he, it takes him, his haircut's 20 minutes. So he can just quickly schedule that in between meetings at the beginning of the day during lunch. And I was finding myself like, oh my gosh, I need to book this 3 months out to get on the calendar, and it's going to be at 7 p.m. at night, and that's going to take away time from my kids. And now I've just realized during the work week, take the time from, whatever it is, 10 to noon, noon to 2, to go and to get your hair cut. That's not something that is self-care, that you should not have to sacrifice while balancing professional and your personal life. So that's a very, something I hold a boundary on now, that I do not feel bad about going and getting my hair cut when it needs to get cut.
I love that. And you shouldn't feel bad about that. Absolutely. And your hair looks amazing right now, just so you know. You're glowing. Liz, I'd love to know, what are some practical strategies that you use for addressing work-life balance?
Yeah, scheduling blocks are really helpful for me. Making sure that at the very beginning of the day, I can spend the time to prioritize what needs to be done, reassess, how things are going for the week, and just having the space to kind of ease into the day. So for the first hour that I'm here, or first half an hour actually, I have a block on my calendar. So no one can schedule something where suddenly, you get in and then it's like, oh no, I've got a meeting in 15 minutes that just got added to my calendar last night. So scheduling blocks are really effective for, to set yourself up for success, or to even just schedule time throughout the week. You have, 3 different projects that you're working on, set blocks of time so that you can actually get them done. And then another one is to set boundaries. And I love what you said, Anna, about, getting that haircut, setting those priorities and making just the time and the space to be able to do them, and the ability to say no. And that doesn't have to just be at work, right? It can be in your personal life. And one thing that I think a lot of people forget is that no is a complete sentence. So you don't have to justify if you don't want to go to some kind of party or something. It's like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to make that work. So setting those boundaries, making those scheduling blocks, are some strategies that are really helpful for me.
I love that. And that's, I'm going to echo that as well with the saying no. You can't be afraid to say no, and stand by it after you do. My friends know, like, if it's raining, the answer is no. So don't ask me to go anywhere. They don't even, you can't even, like with me now, I've gotten to that point, and it takes time to learn, because we've been conditioned for how long now, right? To say yes and to put everything and everybody else before us. And we have to almost unlearn that, not in a bad way, but just, set your boundaries, like Liz said. Now, Chastity, I would really love to hear your take on this one too, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So one thing that I've learned recently, and I've never had to do this before, but recently I had to rely on my team and just being open with my supervisor about what's going on in my personal life. Not over communicating in any way, but just letting him know that, hey, things are a little crazier than they usually are here. So I'm going to need some grace. And I've never had to ask for grace before, but thankfully we have the rapport where I was able to do that. And I, still showed up to work, but maybe I couldn't respond to your email right away, or maybe I had to leave early that day. So I find that being open with your team and just communicating, if your bandwidth is low, communicating that has been really helpful for me. Something else that has been really helpful for me is the workout membership program that I have. They have yoga classes that are 15 minutes long. So just in the middle of the day, during your lunch break, just taking a quick 15-minute restorative yoga class would just work wonders on relaxing you and getting you back and ready for the second half of the day. So that is definitely something I would recommend.
Fantastic. I love it. And again, this just speaks to what I said a little bit earlier. Like, the world is changing in such a much more positive way, where you can actually now go to your supervisor, your boss, your manager, whatever the case, and say, I need a little bit of grace. Remember back in the day when they used to say, leave your personal life at the door, and when you come into work, it's about, they don't do that anymore, or at least the good companies don't do that anymore. So I'm just so happy to see that. And I'm happy that you're able to express that here, and our audience is able to see that as well. Let's see here. Now, Anna, How have you found, let me just make sure I say it right. How have you found your own passion, purpose, and voice at work? And how do you elevate others' voices around you?
Great question. So tying it back to the ERG a little bit, which is kind of a theme here. I love my job at Renaissance, the onboarding job. I love it and I love my team and I have passion for that. Where I truly am inspired to come to work and like make an impact is around the working moms of Renaissance. And I encourage people, you got hired for a job and you have your job description and that's what you need to do every day.
Mm-hmm.
Find opportunities that are tied to your passion to make an impact at your job outside of your job description, because it provides that excitement and it provides in some ways a break from maybe if your job is a little more mundane or you're having a bad day with certain things, you can then take your energy and you still know that you are making an impact on the company, but most importantly your colleagues. So if I'm ever needing a break on the Working Moms, we have a very active Microsoft Teams channel, and we just like put things in there. And sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's professional, and it really creates that energy and passion. And I think to the second question of elevating others around you, and I think, Liz, you mentioned this, shining the spotlight on folks. I think that was one of our first questions, and making sure we celebrate. And when you set up an ERG, you can't do it alone. And one of the first things we did was we established committee chairs, and then we have committees. And even though I get, I'm the founder, most of the work and the kind of behind the scenes is from these committees and these committee chairs that are putting in time each and every day to create that structure and create opportunities for the group. And I try as much as possible to like shine the light on them because they are the ones that are doing this. And so just continuing to find those opportunities to call out colleagues. And if you didn't do the work, like Liz says, like you didn't do the work and that's okay. And make sure that the person that did the work is getting the accolades they deserve.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Chastity, your turn.
Yeah. So in terms of finding my passion and my voice, to Anna's point, like to find opportunities to work across other teams, especially teams that I don't normally interact with. So I've worked on projects with research teams, design, sales, all at Renaissance. I've put on public-facing events as part of the ERG. I've participated in Renaissance's Data Champions program where I learned SQL. So I'm always looking for opportunities to upskill and have that continual growth. And I'm thankful that I get that here at Renaissance. It's helped me to understand what my interests are, what my skills are, where are my passions. But that also helps with networking and being able to advocate for my work, because now I've built those connections with other teams. I understand what they're working on, and I understand how their work plays it, how our roles, I should say, interact with each other. And by having those connections on other teams, I think it has elevated my voice in the company.
Oh, outstanding. So outstanding. Liz, I want to put you on the spot and ask you the same question.
If I can find the unmute button. Sorry. How have I found my own passion, purpose, and voice at work? I specifically at Renaissance, well, not specifically at Renaissance, because I've worked with a lot of inspiring people throughout my career. But we have a really great team, and being able to share ideas, bounce around ideas with other people to achieve a common goal really gives me, it's inspiring to me, and it gives me that purpose and knowing that I have a team who can help, who can, Chastity said something earlier that resonated, that was recently when you were speaking with your supervisor that you had some things going on in your personal life. I've had a pretty challenging year in terms of health with my parents, and knowing that my team had my back and that I didn't have to not freak out, but if I had to take time off and it was unexpected, that the team was able to just continue pushing on through, supporting me, supporting each other to get our common goals accomplished, even if I had to kind of take a little bit of a back seat, and having the support from my director, from my direct report, from other team members has just been great. So I would say it's about community and how each other just support each other. That's really been my passion here at Renaissance.
Outstanding, Liz. Thank you so much. So I do want to do a couple of questions from the audience again. And I have a really good one. I'd actually like all three of you to answer this one. Whoever unmutes first gets to go first. So I work in a very competitive environment that is not supportive of women. Thus, it is very individually oriented. Can you offer some suggestions as to how to connect with others when the culture is conducive?
Well, I think gathering the women around and starting that group, that ERG or whatever it may look like at that organization may be the first step. There's power in numbers, and having that collective or just having all of the women together and voicing that collective opinion, I think can be powerful. And then I also think, to a point I made earlier about understanding different identities and being able to connect that way, I think that may be a way to begin making the environment a bit more inclusive when you can identify how the two of you, I should say, identify the shared identities. I'm using identity a whole lot. I was trying to find another word, but we all have shared identities, and perhaps that may be a way to begin building relationships outside of the women ERG that you may begin. That would be my advice.
Thank you so much. Anna?
And yeah, piggybacking on that, I think kind of a second or third step, if you can find that community, even if it's just you and one other person, hopefully it's a handful. If the culture is also, not conducive, or I think the question said, not supportive of women, some of it might be structural, right? And, if the company was created by men, certain policies or certain benefits might not even be on their radar because it doesn't apply to them. And, it might not even be intentional, right? It might not be that, hey, HR is getting together and saying, here's our policies and we don't want it to be supportive of women. It might have just been, hey, when we created these policies, the company only had men and we didn't think about that. And so, a very specific action you can take once you find a small community is, again, I know reading policy maybe is a little bit dry, but it can shift the culture if you feel supported in, your bereavement policy, your parental leave, certain benefits that the company offers, and be willing to, do some research of how other companies are doing this well, and go to HR. And again, the worst thing they're going to say is no, but hopefully through that process, you've learned a little bit more about, who your allies are and ultimately what your company supports and doesn't support. And, hopefully, fingers crossed, that they would be willing to make some changes.
And I got to say, that is such a great and positive answer there. I was kind of thinking about, honestly, through this whole session, I've been thinking about what you said earlier about the program that you guys have for, for women who might have a miscarriage or something like that, God forbid. And like you just said, some men might not have even, none of you ever crossed their mind. And that never, ever crossed my mind. I would have went my whole life and probably, until you said it, it would have never registered to me. So I think the takeaway there is, maybe the company might not be counter conducive. I mean, they might be, but they might not. Maybe they just didn't know. So I love that, Anna. Such a great answer there. And it gives another perspective to our audience as well, to not necessarily feel like maybe that company's the enemy. Maybe they just don't know.
Yeah. And I think another example that came to mind that's less policy and more benefit driven is something at Renaissance that I didn't know until I had a kid. There's a benefit program called, I think it's Milk Stork, which is, companies can offer that benefit. So if you are a nursing mom and you are traveling, that can often be a burden, right, of being pumping and getting the milk back. And so Milk Stork has a delivery service that ships overnight and keeps the milk cold and all of that. And that's something Renaissance recently offers as part of their benefits. But again, getting to the point of the company might not even know, because if the people making the benefits, that doesn't apply to them, they have never, breastfed before, coming with like, hey, this is something that would actually make a big difference in some of our employees' lives. It's possible, and there are programs out there, and do not hesitate to reach out to people to see what ideas that they've had at their company that have moved the needle a little bit.
Outstanding. So outstanding. Thank you so much, Anna. Liz, did you want to chime in with anything on this one?
Yeah, I would say I feel like a lot of people are scared of HR, and they shouldn't be, because people who are in HR just really want to support employees. And so finding that person, finding that one ally who you can start to, potentially build something with, go to HR and say, hey, this is something that we've noticed, and we'd like to review the policy, start an ERG, something like that. But don't be afraid to talk to HR, because they're here for employees. So we tend to get a bad rap. We're not bad.
You're right. HR is not bad. I blame the office for that. They made HR out to be monsters.
Yeah, poor Toby. Poor Toby. So, one other thing I would say is, that person said that their environment may not be very supportive. This might be a little unpopular, but if the environment in which you're working is not supportive, find one that is. As you're going out and about, look for companies that align with your values and see what they're doing, and network with them so that you can find a place that works with you, and that where you can bring your whole self to work. So
absolutely. And that's a great way for me to plug in Fairygodboss, because that's exactly what we're here for. You can find anonymous information just like that about other companies that are treating women better. And maybe it might be time to make a little jump. And then I can plug Renaissance Learning, because these folks do have a profile on Fairygodboss, so check them out. So I have another question while we have some time. I think that this is a really cool one. It really makes you think. So whoever wants to answer it first can go for it. Looking back on your careers, what would you say has been your most valuable career mistake? And how did you overcome it? See, it makes you go back, right? I saw you, Liz. You're like, ooh.
I can go first. My most valuable career mistake was not setting boundaries and not having a good work-life balance. Because ultimately that just doesn't set a person up for success in any way, shape, or form in your life. If you're completely burned out and unhappy and unable to kind of cope, that's not a good way to live. So that would be my biggest mistake, would be that overwork, burned out shell of a human.
Mm-hmm.
Find a place where you can have a balance, have a support network, and set those boundaries and those calendar blocks from the get-go, so that you don't get to that place where you're just burned out.
Yeah. Absolutely. Who wants to jump in next here? Most valuable career mistake?
Yeah. I will say that mine has to be that one time that I didn't ask the woman that I wanted to be my mentor if she would be my mentor, just out of shyness. I blamed it on my introvertedness, and just that was that. And I missed out on a lot of coaching, on a lot of support that I believe she could have given me, simply because I just didn't know. I didn't have the confidence enough to just ask, shoot my shot, as you've been saying, Lasheen. So now I make the connections, I set up meetings, I make sure that if there is someone that I think I can learn from, that I keep that connection alive. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Anna?
I would say my biggest mistake was when I had my first son and I actually switched jobs on maternity leave. So I not only like welcomed a new baby, and then I joined Renaissance, and I, for no one's fault except myself, I felt like I had to show up a certain way. And I felt like, I had to prove that I could do all of these things to a certain level all the time. And if I didn't, or if I showed up in a certain way, whether it was like physically showing up or just like where my headspace was at, that somehow I was going to get judged for that. And what I have since learned is like, you're not going to be perfect all the time. Like that's not like real life. Second, communication and being honest with yourself and your employees, like that is what creates an inclusive environment and allows you to be who you are. And so, I don't want to say a do-over, but when I had my second baby, it was like I came back and I was a completely different person. And I was able to say, hey, I'm going to be 20 minutes late to our team meeting because I was up every hour last night and I haven't had time to shower. So I'm going to go shower now. And like the team was totally fine with it. And so I had this little voice in my head the first time around that felt like if I'm not perfect and I'm not on time, and if I don't respond to every email within 24 hours, then something's going to happen. And that's just not actually what was going to happen. So give yourself grace and communicate.
Love that. Sometimes we do get in our own ways, and it's a learning experience. And you were able to take from the first time around, and the second time around, now you're nailing it and you're figuring out that balance. And that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. I love this conversation so much. You guys have made my Monday, because I don't like Mondays, but you guys have really made my Monday. Now, at Fairygodboss, we have a tradition of asking our panelists the following. What we've observed is that, and this is not me saying it, but this is what we've observed, is that women sometimes do not feel comfortable enough bragging or taking ownership of all the amazing things that they achieve. So I would like for each and every one of you to share with us an accomplishment, be it personal or professional, that you're most proud of.
I'm the first to unmute. An accomplishment that I'm really proud of is assembling the Content Quality Advisory Committee at work. It's an intentionally diverse advisory board of 6 amazing women with experience in both education and DEI. And we meet quarterly, and every meeting focuses on a different product. And they do a deep dive into our content, and they give this really good feedback on how we can increase the inclusiveness and the representation in the content. And I take that feedback to the content teams, and then we work to continue increasing the quality of representation of diverse groups in our content. It's something that I'm really proud of. It was a long time coming. You can learn more about it on our website, because I'm also proud that it's up on our website. Yeah.
So cool. So cool. Who else wants to brag about something amazing? Anna, come on.
That's hard to follow. And certainly when I read this question, I instantly got a little like sweaty, because you're right, Lasheen, like this is not something that women are often comfortable doing. So mine is personal and professional in one. Prior to working at Renaissance, I founded a high school. And so what that means is I worked at a charter school network in Minneapolis, and the network started with kindergarten and first grade, and then they added schools as that founding class grew. And I happened to be working in a different position, and a year into the future was when they needed a high school for these rising 8th graders into 9th grade. And I had the opportunity to be the director of operations, which was all the non-academic parts of the school. And I knew very little, but I was organized and could keep a mean spreadsheet. So I started a high school that has now been in existence for 8 years. They just had graduation last week, and they graduate about 120 students every year with a 100% college acceptance rate. And I just picture myself like the summers I was literally putting desks together and like trying to figure out food service while also like getting toilet paper in the bathrooms. So it was very like in the weeds, and I put a ton of effort into it. And it's something that I have to remind myself when I have bad days that like, wow, I did something really, really remarkable.
Oh my gosh, you literally set something into motion that's changed lives. These kids have graduated at 100% college rate. Oh, you're like an angel. Okay. That's amazing. Liz, I would love to hear something amazing that you'd love to brag about.
That's wow. Anna and Chastity. Those are both amazing. Mine is, it's funny because it is a hard thing to brag about yourself, isn't it? As women, we're taught to keep that kind of to ourselves. So, one thing that I am proud of is that I am going to start grad school in the fall. I was accepted to the University of Colorado Boulder for a Master's of Science in Organizational Leadership. So I'm excited to begin to pursue that. So
we are excited for you, Liz. That is phenomenal. You three just really seriously made my day. The week is going to be a good one because of you all. So guys on that are in the audience, we want to all collectively thank Chastity, Liz, and Anna for joining us today, for sharing such fantastic and tangible advice. I know that there's a lot of information that came out today that we're going to actually be able to utilize once we get off this call. And thanks to all of you in the audience who tuned in for the discussion. Now, as a reminder, we'll be sending out a recording of today's event, along with resources to learn more about opportunities at Renaissance Learning. In the meantime, be sure to check out Renaissance Learning's profile on Fairygodboss. And also, we'd love to hear your feedback to help us improve for future events. So please head on over to the Typeform tab on the right side of your screen. Share your thoughts in a 1-minute, really quick survey. Thanks, everyone. We will see you next time. # shoot your shot.
I love it.